"I don't need you anymore," said Ella, laughing with a glass of wine in her hand, next to the new man at the party. Logan just smiled. "Great, because I know how you use my company for your adventures." Her face turned pale as he left, holding evidence in his pocket that would change everything. Logan Bennett, a 32-year-old rising star at a Chicago tech firm, had always been the guy who played by the rules. He was the first to arrive at the office, crunching numbers and sealing deals that kept the company's profits climbing. His colleagues admired his work ethic, and his boss often called him the backbone of their operations. But what Logan valued most was his life with Ella, his wife of 5 years. At 30, Ella was a creative director at a flashy ad agency, her energy lighting up any room. Together, they seemed like the perfect couple, the kind who posted smiling selfies at Chicago's Skyline Bistro, their go-to spot for anniversaries and small victories. Their routine was comfortable, almost enviable. Friday nights meant dinner at Skyline, where they'd share a bottle of wine and talk about their dreams. Logan's plan to make VP by 35, Ella's ambition to launch her own marketing firm. But lately, Logan noticed cracks in their picture-perfect life. Ella's late nights at the office had become more frequent, her excuses vaguer. "Client meetings," she'd say, waving off his questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He brushed it off as stress. Her agency was pitching a big campaign, after all. Still, a quiet unease settled in his gut. One Thursday evening, Logan was wrapping up a late shift at the office, reviewing contracts for a new vendor, Nick Howard. The name didn't ring any bells at first, just another supplier in a long list of corporate contacts. His phone buzzed on the desk, a text from Ella. "Running late again. Dinner with the team. Don't wait up." He frowned. It was the third time that week. He typed a quick reply, "No worries, see you later," and went back to work. But as he scrolled through the vendor file, something caught his eye. An expense report with Nick Howard's name tied to a string of high-end purchases. First-class flights, a luxury hotel in Miami, and a dinner reservation for two at a place that charged $200 a plate. Logan's company wasn't footing bills like that for vendors. His jaw tightened. Something wasn't right. When he got home, the apartment was dark. Ella's shoes weren't by the door. Her jacket wasn't on the rack. He flicked on the kitchen light and grabbed a beer from the fridge, trying to shake the nagging feeling. Then his eyes landed on Ella's tablet, left on the counter. She'd been careless lately, leaving it unlocked. Curiosity got the better of him. He tapped the screen, and a message thread popped up. The name at the top, Nick Howard. The latest text read, "Can't wait for Miami. You and me, no distractions." Logan's heart thudded. He scrolled up, his eyes scanning phrases like "you deserve better" and "he's holding you back." Each word hit like a punch. Ella wasn't just working late. She was planning a getaway with another man. Logan set the tablet down, his mind racing. He didn't confront her when she slipped in at 1 a.m., her heels clicking softly as she tiptoed to bed. He didn't say a word the next morning when she kissed his cheek and said she had a work thing that weekend. Instead, he watched her leave, her suitcase rolling behind her, and felt a shift inside him. Not anger, not yet, but a cold, focused clarity. He wasn't the type to lash out or break down. Logan was a planner, and he was already forming one. That Friday, while Ella thought he was buried in spreadsheets, Logan dug deeper into Nick Howard's vendor file. The expense reports were sloppy, almost arrogant. Thousands spent on personal trips disguised as business development. Logan cross-checked the dates. They matched Ella's work trips over the past 2 months. He saved every document, every receipt, every confirmation number. By midnight, he had a folder on his laptop labeled Evidence, filled with enough proof to sink a career. But he wasn't ready to act. Not yet. The next evening, Logan's company hosted a gala at a downtown hotel. Ella had insisted on attending, saying it was a chance to network with his colleagues. He agreed, curious to see how she'd play it. At the event, she was all charm, laughing with executives and clinking glasses. Then he saw her with Nick Howard. The guy was slick, mid-30s, sharp suit, the kind of confidence that came from getting away with too much for too long. They stood close, her hand brushing his arm, their smiles too familiar. Logan watched from across the room, sipping his drink, his expression unreadable. As the night wound down, Ella approached him, her eyes bright with something that wasn't love. "Logan," she said, her voice steady, "we need to talk." She led him to a quiet corner, away from the crowd. "I'm done," she said, no hesitation. "I met someone else." "Nick?" He's everything I need. We're leaving for Miami tomorrow, and I'm not coming back to you." Her words were sharp, meant to cut. She expected him to crumble, to beg. Instead, Logan nodded, his face calm. "Good to know," he said. "Enjoy your trip." Her brow furrowed, thrown off by his composure, but she turned and walked back to Nick without another word. Logan left the gala, the city lights blurring past as he drove home. Alone in his apartment, he opened his laptop and reviewed the evidence again. Flights booked for tomorrow morning. Hotel reservations under Nick's corporate card. A dinner for two at a rooftop restaurant in Miami. Every detail screamed betrayal, not just of their marriage, but the trust he'd built in his professional world. Nick was using company money to fund his affair with Ella, and Logan wasn't about to let it slide. He leaned back in his chair, the hum of the laptop filling the silence. The plan was simple. Let them board the plane, let them think they'd won. Then, when they were 30,000 feet in the air, he'd pull the plug. He opened his email, drafted messages to HR and the finance team, and attached the evidence. His fingers hovered over the schedule send button. He set the delivery for 10 a.m. tomorrow, right after their flight was scheduled to take off. By the time they landed in Miami, the corporate card would be frozen, the reservations canceled, and Nick's career would be on the line. Logan closed the laptop and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The city was alive, pulsing with possibility. For the first time in months, he felt in control. Ella and Nick thought they'd played him. They had no idea what was coming. Logan woke up the morning after the gala with a clarity that felt like steel. Ella's words from a night before echoed in his head, not as a wound, but as fuel. She declared their marriage over in front of a crowd, her arm linked with Nick Howard's, as if Logan were a footnote in her new life. But Logan wasn't one to unravel. He was already 3 steps ahead, his plan taking shape with surgical precision. By 7 a.m., he was at his desk, coffee in hand, laptop open. The evidence folder stared back at him, a digital arsenal of Nick's misuse of company funds. Logan scrolled through the files again, double-checking every detail. First-class tickets to Miami, booked under Nick's corporate account. A penthouse suite at a South Beach hotel, reserved for 2. A private yacht charter for Saturday night, paid with the same card. Each transaction was a violation, blatant and sloppy, as if Nick thought no one would notice. Logan's company had strict policies on expense accounts, and Nick had crossed every line. Logan's fingers moved fast, drafting a second email to the finance director, attaching receipts and highlighting discrepancies. He kept the tone neutral, letting the numbers speak. $8,000 on flights, $3,500 on hotels, $1,200 on dinners, all marked as client entertainment, with no client names attached. He flagged the vendor contract with Nick's company, noting the pattern of overbilling. Then he drafted a separate email to HR, outlining Nick's role as a supplier and the ethical breach of using company resources for personal gain. He attached screenshots of the Miami bookings, including Ella's name as a guest. Every word was calculated, no emotion, just facts. He scheduled both emails for 10:15 a.m., minutes after Ella and Nick's flight was set to depart. The timing was deliberate. They'd be in the air, sipping champagne, thinking they'd pulled off their escape. By the time they landed, the corporate card would be dead, the reservations canceled, and Nick's vendor account flagged for review. Logan leaned back, imagining the moment their confidence would crack. His phone buzzed. A text from Ella. "I'll grab my things this afternoon. Don't be there." No apology, no hesitation. Logan didn't reply. Instead, he opened the vendor management system and added a formal request to suspend Nick's account. The system required a reason code. He selected suspected fraud and uploaded the same evidence. The request would trigger an automatic alert to the compliance team. Logan knew the process. Approvals were fast when the proof was this clear. By noon, Ella arrived at the apartment. Logan made himself scarce, watching from a coffee shop across the street. Through the window, he saw her roll a suitcase to a waiting car, her movements quick, like someone eager to leave the past behind. She took only what she needed: clothes, a few documents, her favorite jewelry. The rest, their shared life, stayed untouched. Logan sipped his coffee, unfazed. Her exit was just another piece falling into place. Back at the office, Logan kept up appearances. He joined a team meeting, nodded through discussions, even cracked a joke about a client's impossible demands. No one suspected the storm brewing inside him. During a break, he overheard two colleagues gossiping about the gala. Ella's bold move with Nick hadn't gone unnoticed. "She's got some nerve," one said. Logan pretended not to hear, but the comment stoked his resolve. This wasn't just personal. It was about exposing a betrayal that had bled into his professional world. He spent the afternoon refining his plan. A quick call to his lawyer confirmed the divorce papers were being drafted. "Make it clean," Logan instructed. "No negotiations, just end it." The lawyer promised to have everything ready by Monday. Logan hung up, feeling lighter. The marriage was already dead. This was just paperwork. Then came the wild card. While cross-checking Nick's vendor profile, Logan found an old email thread buried in the system. It was from Nick to a junior accountant, casually requesting flexibility on expense approvals. The tone was too familiar, almost cocky, as if Nick had someone on the inside. Logan dug deeper and found a pattern. Small, questionable payments approved without scrutiny, all linked to the same accountant. He added this to his report, flagging it for the audit team. If Nick had allies in the company, they'd go down with him. As evening fell, Logan drove to Skyline Bistro, not for nostalgia, but for clarity. He sat at their usual table, ordered a whiskey, and reviewed his plan one last time. The emails were set. The vendor suspension was queued. The divorce was in motion. He pictured Ella and Nick at the airport, checking in for their flight, oblivious to the trap closing around them. Logan didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just sipped his drink, the burn of the whiskey matching the fire in his chest. His phone buzzed again, a photo from Ella's social media. Her and Nick at the airport lounge, glasses raised, captions gushing about new beginnings. Logan swiped it away. Let them celebrate, he thought. Their victory lap would be short. He paid the bill and stepped into the Chicago night, the city's pulse syncing with his own. Tomorrow, when their plane touched down in Miami, the real show would begin. The morning of Ella and Nick's flight to Miami, Logan was up before dawn. His apartment was quiet, the absence of Ella's belongings a stark reminder of the life she'd chosen to leave. He didn't linger on it. His focus was razor-sharp, fixed on the plan he'd set in motion. By 10:15 a.m., the emails to HR and the finance team would hit their inboxes, exposing Nick's misuse of company funds. The vendor suspension request was already queued in the system, flagged as urgent. Logan checked the flight tracker on his phone. Ella and Nick's plane was boarding at O'Hare. They were minutes from takeoff, oblivious to the unraveling about to hit them. Logan spent the early hours tying up loose ends. He logged into the company's expense portal and confirmed the corporate card tied to Nick's account was still active for now. He cross-referenced the Miami bookings, a penthouse suite at a South Beach hotel, a yacht charter for Saturday, and a dinner reservation at a rooftop restaurant, all charged to the company. The audacity of it fueled him, not with anger, but with a cold determination to see this through. He saved one final screenshot, a confirmation email for the yacht, listing Ella as the second guest. It was the last piece of evidence he needed. At 9:45 a.m., Logan called his lawyer to confirm the divorce filing was on track. "It's ready," the lawyer said. "We'll serve her the papers when she's back in Chicago." Logan thanked him and hung up, his mind already shifting to the next move. He opened his laptop and drafted a brief memo to the executive board, summarizing the financial discrepancies tied to Nick's vendor account. He attached the full report, receipts, emails, booking confirmations, and marked it for delivery at 10:30 a.m., just after the main emails. This wasn't just about Nick and Ella. It was about protecting the company from further damage. Logan knew the board would act swiftly to avoid a PR disaster. By 10 a.m., he was in the office, blending into the usual bustle. He joined a team call, nodding through updates on a new project, his calm demeanor masking the storm he'd unleashed. At 10:15, his phone buzzed with a delivery confirmation. The emails had landed. He pictured the finance team opening the files, their screens lighting up with proof of Nick's fraud. Within minutes, the corporate card would be flagged, triggering automatic holds on all pending transactions. The hotel, the yacht, the restaurant. Every reservation tied to that card would collapse like a house of cards. Halfway across the country, Ella and Nick's plane was cruising at 30,000 feet. Logan imagined them in first class, toasting their new beginning, unaware that their world was about to implode. He didn't dwell on it. Instead, he opened the vendor system and monitored the suspension request. A notification popped up. Under review, compliance team. It was moving faster than he'd expected. By noon, Nick's account would likely be locked, cutting off his access to company resources. The first sign of trouble came sooner than Logan anticipated. At 11:30 a.m., his phone lit up with a call from the finance director. "Logan, we need you in the boardroom. Now." He grabbed his laptop and headed upstairs, keeping his expression neutral. The room was tense. 3 executives, the finance director, and the head of compliance were already there, screens open to his report. "This is serious," the finance director said. "Nick Howard's been charging personal expenses to our account. We're freezing his card and launching a full audit." Logan nodded, offering a concise rundown of how he'd spotted the discrepancies. He didn't mention Ella. They didn't need to know the personal side. Yet, by the time the meeting ended, the compliance team had escalated the case. Nick's vendor contract was suspended pending investigation, and the corporate card was officially blocked. Logan returned to his desk, a quiet satisfaction settling in. The gears were turning, and he hadn't had to say a word about his marriage. Meanwhile, Ella and Nick landed in Miami at 1 p.m. Their confidence was sky-high as they stepped off the plane, ready for their lavish getaway. The first crack appeared at the airport taxi stand. Nick handed over the corporate card to pay the fare. "Declined," the driver said, his tone flat. Nick tried again, then switched to another card, also declined. Ella shifted uncomfortably, her smile fading. They paid cash, assuming it was a glitch, and headed to the hotel. At the South Beach Hotel, the check-in desk delivered the next blow. "I'm sorry, sir," the receptionist said. "Your reservation was canceled due to payment failure. The room's already been reassigned." Nick's voice rose, demanding answers, but the receptionist held firm. "We need a valid payment method to reinstate it." Ella stood silent, her cheeks flushing as other guests glanced their way. Nick pulled out his phone, calling the car provider, only to hear the words Logan had insured. "Account frozen due to suspected misuse." The call ended, and Nick's composure cracked, his voice sharp as he snapped at Ella to figure something out. Logan, back in Chicago, got a text from a coworker. Heard Nick Howard's in hot water. "What's the deal?" He didn't respond. Instead, he checked the vendor system again. Nick's account was now fully suspended. The yacht charter and restaurant had emailed confirmations of canceled bookings, citing payment issues. Logan saved the emails, adding them to his folder. Every move was falling into place. As the afternoon wore on, Ella called him. He let go to voicemail. Her message was frantic, accusing him of sabotaging their trip. "What did you do, Logan? Fix this." He deleted it without a reply. She made her choice, and so had Nick. Now, they were tasting the consequences. By evening, Logan was back at Skyline Bistro, not to mourn but to strategize. He ordered a coffee and opened his laptop, reviewing the day's fallout. The compliance team had already flagged Nick's company for a deeper audit, and whispers were spreading through the office. Logan didn't need to push. The evidence was doing the work. He closed his laptop, paid the bill, and stepped into the night. Ella and Nick were scrambling in Miami, their dream trip in ruins. Logan, meanwhile, was just getting started. The sun was setting over Miami as Ella and Nick's dream getaway crumbled. Their first-class escape had turned into a string of humiliations, declined cards, canceled reservations, and a growing realization that their plans were built on sand. Back in Chicago, Logan sat at his desk, his phone silent, but his inbox buzzing with updates. The emails he'd scheduled had done their job, and the consequences were rippling faster than he'd anticipated. Nick's corporate card was dead, his vendor account suspended, and the company's compliance team was digging deeper into his transactions. Logan didn't need to check on Ella and Nick's whereabouts. The chaos was unfolding exactly as he'd planned. In Miami, the reality hit harder with every failed attempt to salvage their trip. After the hotel turned them away, Nick tried to book a new room using his personal card, only to find it maxed out from earlier spending. Ella, standing beside him, suggested calling her agency for an advance, but her boss's curt reply, "We don't cover personal travel," shut that down. The yacht charter company sent a follow-up email, confirming the cancellation and demanding a $500 penalty fee for the last-minute change. Nick's calls to his own company went unanswered. His assistant, already alerted to the suspension, dodged his questions. The rooftop dinner, their supposed highlight, was off the table, literally. The restaurant had reassigned their spot when the payment failed. Ella's frustration boiled over in a heated exchange outside the hotel. "You said everything was handled, She snapped at Nick, her voice carrying to passers-by. Nick shot back, blaming her for pushing him to live a little. Their argument escalated, each word stripping away the gloss of their affair. By the time they found a budget motel to crash in, the romance was gone, replaced by mutual resentment. Ella's phone buzzed with a notification from her bank. Her own account was running low, drained by her recent splurges to impress Nick. She tried calling Logan again, leaving another voicemail, this time less angry, more desperate. "We need to talk. This isn't what you think." Logan didn't listen to it. He'd heard enough at the gala. Back in Chicago, the office was abuzz by Monday morning. Logan walked into whispers and sidelong glances. A coworker pulled him aside, asking if he'd heard about Nick Howard's mess. Logan played it cool, saying only, "Sounds like he got sloppy." The compliance team had escalated the case to the legal department, which was now preparing a formal demand for Nick's company to repay the misused funds, over $15,000 and counting. The executive board sent a company-wide memo praising the diligent employee who'd flagged the issue, though they didn't name Logan. He didn't need the credit. The results spoke for themselves. His lawyer called at noon with an update. The divorce papers were filed, and Ella would be served as soon as she returned to Chicago. Logan instructed him to keep it straightforward. No alimony, no drawn-out battles. He wanted a clean break, just as Ella had declared at the gala. The lawyer noted Ella's lack of response so far, likely because she was still scrambling in Miami. Logan hung up, feeling the weight of the past week lift slightly. The personal betrayal still stung, but he was channeling it into action, not regret. By midweek, the fallout spread further. Nick's company issued a public statement, distancing itself from his actions and announcing his immediate leave pending investigation. Industry contacts started pulling away, and his name began circulating as a cautionary tale. Logan got an email from the finance director, requesting a meeting to discuss next steps in the audit. He agreed, bringing a new report he'd compiled, a timeline of Nick's questionable expenses cross-referenced with Ella's travel dates. The director was impressed, hinting at a potential promotion for Logan's sharp eye. Logan nodded, keeping his focus on the bigger picture, ensuring Nick couldn't worm his way back. Ella returned to Chicago on Wednesday, alone. Nick had stayed in Miami, trying to salvage his reputation with desperate calls to his network. She showed up at the apartment, expecting to grab more belongings, only to find the locks changed. A note from Logan's lawyer was taped to the door, informing her of the divorce filing and directing her to contact his office. She stood there, suitcase in hand, the reality sinking in. Her calls to Logan went straight to voicemail. She texted, "You've ruined everything," but got no reply. Logan was done engaging. The company's legal team moved fast. By Friday, they'd sent Nick a formal notice demanding repayment within 30 days or face arbitration. The audit uncovered more discrepancies, smaller, earlier transactions Nick had slipped through, likely testing the waters before escalating to the Miami stunt. The board approved a full review of all vendor contracts, a move that would keep Nick's company under scrutiny for months. Logan watched it unfold from his desk, his role in the takedown still under the radar. He preferred it that way. Ella's agency caught wind of the scandal, and her boss called her in for a serious talk. Her involvement with Nick, now tied to a corporate fraud case, raised red flags. She was put on probation, her big campaign reassigned to a colleague. Her social media, once filled with vibrant posts, went quiet. Friends who cheered her new life at the gala stopped calling. The glow of her affair had faded, replaced by the harsh light of consequences. Logan spent the weekend organizing his next steps. He met with his lawyer to finalize the divorce terms, ensuring Ella had no claim to his assets. He also drafted a personal budget, redirecting funds he'd once shared with her to investments and a gym membership he'd let lapse. The apartment, now his alone, felt like a blank slate. He didn't mourn the past. He was too busy building what came next. By Sunday night, Logan checked his phone one last time. A final voicemail from Ella, her voice shaky. "I didn't know it would end like this. Can we talk?" He deleted it, closed his laptop, and stepped out onto his balcony. The Chicago skyline stretched before him, its lights steady and unyielding. Ella and Nick were learning their lesson, but Logan's real victory was the control he'd reclaimed. The final act was coming, and he was ready to close the chapter for good. 3 months after Ella and Nick's Miami debacle, Logan had settled into a new rhythm. The apartment, once a shared space, was now his alone, stripped of any trace of Ella's presence. The divorce was finalized in record time. Ella didn't contest it, perhaps too overwhelmed by her own unraveling life to fight. Logan's focus had shifted entirely to rebuilding, his days filled with work, new routines, and a quiet sense of purpose. The chaos of betrayal was behind him, replaced by a clarity that felt like a fresh start. At the office, the fallout from Nick's actions continued to ripple. The audit Logan triggered uncovered more than just the Miami expenses. Nick's company had been overbilling for months, slipping small charges through unchecked approvals. The legal team sent a final demand for $22,000 in repayments, with a threat of litigation if unmet. Nick's company folded under the pressure, losing major clients as word of the scandal spread. By mid-month, Nick was persona non grata in the industry, his LinkedIn profile dormant, his network silent. Logan heard through a colleague that Nick had taken a low-level consulting gig in another state, a far cry from his former swagger. Ella's fall was less public, but no less stark. Her agency, wary of the scandal's shadow, sidelined her indefinitely. The big campaign she'd pinned her career on was now a rival success, and her probation stretched into a demotion. She moved into a small apartment, funded by a dwindling savings account, and her social media went dark. No more posts about glamorous trips or bold new beginnings. Mutual friends stopped mentioning her to Logan, as if she'd faded from their world entirely. When she tried texting him one last time, asking to clear the air, Logan blocked her number. There was nothing left to say. Logan's role in exposing Nick earned him quiet respect at work. The executive board sent a personal note, thanking him for his vigilance in protecting the company's integrity. The finance director hinted at a promotion, citing Logan's knack for spotting what others missed. He didn't chase the praise, but it felt good to know his instincts had paid off. He took on a new project, leading a team to overhaul the vendor approval process, ensuring no one could exploit the system like Nick had. The work kept him sharp, his mind too busy for regrets. Outside the office, Logan reclaimed his time. He rejoined a local running group, hitting the lakefront trail at dawn, the steady rhythm of his steps grounding him. He started cooking again, simple meals for one, and found satisfaction in the routine. A colleague invited him to a networking event, where he connected with a startup founder looking for a strategic partner. The conversation sparked an idea. Maybe it was time to step out on his own, take the risks he'd once put off for Ella's dreams. The thought didn't scare him. It felt like possibility. One Friday evening, Logan returned to Skyline Bistro, the place where Ella had dropped her bombshell months ago. He didn't choose the spot for nostalgia, but for closure. He ordered his usual, a grilled salmon dish they'd once shared, and sat by the window, watching the Chicago skyline flicker to life. The meal wasn't about reliving the past. It was a marker, proof he could revisit the place without pain. He paid the bill, left a generous tip, and walked out, the cool night air hitting his face. The city felt like his again. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. A week later, the company's legal team closed the case against Nick's firm. They recovered $18,000 of the misused funds, with arrest written off as a lesson in oversight. The board implemented Logan's proposed changes to the vendor system, citing his report as a model for future audits. His name wasn't splashed across memos, but the impact was clear. Colleagues started seeking his input on projects, and the finance director offered him a lead role in a new compliance initiative. Logan accepted, not for the title, but because it felt right to build something stronger from the mess Nick had left. Ella's name surfaced one last time in a brief email from her lawyer, confirming she'd signed the divorce papers. Attached was a note, handwritten, asking for forgiveness and a chance to explain. Logan read it once, then deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't the point. He didn't hate her, didn't wish her ill. He'd simply moved on. Her choices and Nick's had carved their own paths, and Logan had no interest in following. As winter settled over Chicago, Logan stood on his balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. The skyline, sharp against the morning sky, felt like a mirror of his own resolve. Steady, unyielding, alive with potential. He'd lost a marriage, but gained something more, control over his own story. Nick and Ella's downfall wasn't his victory. His real triumph was the life he was building, step by deliberate step. Logan turned back inside, ready for the day. A new project awaited at work. A run was scheduled for dawn, and a meeting with the startup founder loomed next week. The past was done, its lessons learned. He didn't need applause or revenge's fleeting thrill. What he had now, clarity, purpose, and a path he'd chosen, was enough.